Hi, I'm Christina Trauthwein, VP of Content and Partnerships at Hotel Business. Did you know you can turn your parking asset into a profit center? You can. That's right. Hotel and asset owners can grow revenue through optimal parking revenue management. And we're going to find out how. I'm here with James Hansen, Head of Partnerships at Ocra, and you'll hear it straight from the source. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Christina. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on the show here.
So, James, let's talk a little bit about the importance of ancillary revenue streams in an environment of softening RevPAR.
Ancillary revenue streams have always sort of been there in the hotel space, but more often than not, they were also sort of an afterthought. And I would add a couple points on that. Ancillary revenue streams, number one, defining them, are typical revenue streams that are coming from, in hotels, non-guest room sources. So if we think of ancillary, we think of things like spa and other outlets that are operated in the hotel that are ancillary to the business operations of the hotel. And more often than not, that might include other revenue sources like parking, or in today's environment, a lot of hotels and resorts are charging guest add-on fees, whether we call it a resort fee or destination fee. So these ancillary revenue streams have always been there, but I will tell you that they have never really been managed the way that we think about managing our guest room inventory and revenue managing our guest room rates. So the importance of this is, paramount today in a market where RevPAR, frankly, is not growing at the same clip it was all throughout the early and mid 2000s, certainly not at the clip that it was post-COVID, when we saw a big bump on the revenge travel, if you will. And then softening RevPAR, what that does is create an opportunity, actually. It creates an opportunity for hoteliers to look for other sources of revenue, and this is where ancillary revenue streams can really kick in.
Okay, so let's expand upon the idea of opportunity. How can you integrate parking revenue into broader hotel revenue strategies?
I can tell you this, Christina, as a 20-plus year hotel operator myself, I have been involved with countless amount of hotels that have great parking assets. And what I mean by that is wonderful parking lots, buildings or structures, whether it's a garage or some type of covered parking lot. And what I've always had in the back of my mind was, wow, I'm managing and operating this great lot here, and it's more often thought of as a feature or amenity or a benefit to our guests in the hotel. But every night, much like a hotel room that isn't occupied, I have empty parking spots that are sitting there, not being utilized, not by a guest, not by one of the team members at the hotel. How could I involve this to A, use those spots, and B, more importantly, generate income and revenue out of it? And so the way we could integrate parking revenue into the overall strategy is think to ourselves when we're doing things like creating our annual budget, which is a process every hotelier goes through each year. More often than not, when we're doing that process, we're thinking about, okay, if I have parking, and if I operate it myself or I have a third-party operator there and perhaps it's self-parking or even valet services, my one goal is to ensure, number one, that we're not losing money. And number two is if there's the off chance that we break even or incrementally pull a few dollars out of there, that's a win-win.
You said it's a win-win, and who doesn't want that? So why should hotel owners and operators view parking as a dynamic profit center rather than just a static guest amenity? And how can we kind of help reframe that mindset?
To your point, owners and operators, as I alluded to in the previous question, they have typically thought of it as an amenity, an offering that's something almost like it's required to have that. When you have guests that are driving to your hotel, whether it's for an overnight stay or a meeting or some reason, maybe it's the restaurant or spa on site, they have to have accommodation to take care of their vehicle. And so it's always been thought of in that light. It's an amenity, it's an offering. But when reality is, particularly when you talk about a solution like ours, or a solution that allows you to sell those spots to non-hotel guests, all of a sudden you turn something that historically has been thought of as or more so as an afterthought of, yeah, let's hope that is a break-even point for us, or it doesn't put any stress, strain, or cost basis on our hotel. And the reality is, it can be one of your most dynamic profit centers, and not only most dynamic, but largest margin profit centers. You know, an interesting point about parking revenues at hotels and the way that those are accounted for from a revenue and accounting perspective is many a times we can collect large amounts of revenue, and this is one of the highest margin revenue sources because we're not paying a lot of fees on these revenues collected. And so part of the mindset we need to think about, particularly when you have softer RevPAR in these markets, is strategically, I have a new profit center when I start to focus on my parking. And second part of that is not only do I have a new profit center, I have one of the highest margin profit centers. And this is what we really need to think about as hotel operators is if I'm not making all this ground up in my hotel room revenue or my F&B outlets, my banquets, my restaurant, my lounge, my rooftop, whatever it might be, which historically has some of the higher cost basis in the hotel, if I can find that revenue, incrementally find that revenue from a new profit center like parking, not only am I going to create new revenue stream, but I'm also going to take a lot of that revenue directly to the bottom of the line.
Well, I just love that you're taking something that is, you mentioned is sometimes an afterthought and kind of bringing that to the forefront of your strategy. Let's talk about the importance of building an optimal tech partnership ecosystem.
You know, I think there is not a secret sauce or recipe for having the optimal tech ecosystem or tech stack at your hotel or your business, because it may be different or may look different from company to company and hotel to hotel. What I can do this is make some recommendations of how you first take a step back and assess where you are, and then what you do with that data and the decisions that you make moving forward to optimize, if you will, the amount of technology and the stack of tech that you have at your hotel. So I'd like to just throw something out there, Christina, with a recommendation, and it involves using technology to assess your technology. My recommendation is kind of a multi-step approach of not only looking at the optimal tech stack, but really auditing where you stand today. And if you currently have the right processes and systems in place, and if not, you know, how are you valuing them and how are you assessing their value to your business or your operation? And then really leaving you with, are there changes I need to make? Do I need to, purchase a new technology? Do I need to perhaps get rid of some of the technology I have? So number one, first thing is to do an audit and do an assessment. There's many ways that audit can be conducted. There's the long, arduous process of going through your AP and looking at all your vendors that you're paying and taking into account payments being made. How are those contracts? What are those vendor partners doing for me? But I would recommend perhaps using and leveraging the buzzword that everybody else does, which is AI. This is a great use case of AI, where you could use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI model you're comfortable with and ask it to actually build you a tech stack assessment tool. And you can get as specific to say, I have this kind of hotel ownership or management company, and I'd like to understand exactly what technology I have in place, why it's good, why I should be using it, or why I should maybe get rid of it. And it's fascinating to uncover what that technology will not only do for you, but the recommendations that it can make for you. The truth behind that is, if you don't audit and assess what you're doing, you could be wasting a lot of money, and that's going right to your profitability or your margins, right, in your hotel operation. Second is, you're not really seeing the value that was promised out of that technology, that software, whatever it might be. And third is, you're finding out that you don't have the integration or the connectivity that you thought you did. And that happens in many ways and many layers. And more often than not is because we have a lot of, in that tech stack, we have a lot of fragmented software. And so this audit and this assessment will uncover some things. And a lot of it is that your data is living in a lot of different places and it's not speaking to each other. And when it's not speaking to each other, Christina, they can't use this information like guest or consumer buying habits at your hotel, or parking data, or parking information about who's parking and what they're paying and how much. If it's not connected and there's not clarity within your technology or your tech stack, unfortunately, that data is going nowhere and you're not getting any value out of it. And therefore you cannot make great business decisions with that data.
So for everyone watching this, some great takeaways and some key action items there. Love it. Thanks, James. So give me a quick aha moment or example of when a hotel leader realized they were leaving parking revenue on the table.
Okay. Aha moments. I love aha moments. Well, it wasn't a hotel leader per se directly at a hotel. The one I would reference would be, I ran into a colleague who was actually an asset manager overseeing a small 6 to 10 hotel type portfolio for a much larger, well-respected REIT that owns a multitude of hotels throughout the US and Canada. In speaking to him, I was actually relatively interested to understand how were they managing and ensuring that they were maximizing the revenues coming in from their parking channels. And he kind of gave me a look like, well, that's a strange question. Why do you care what we're charging our guests? And I said to him, I won't forget, I said, well, actually, I'm not really interested in your hotel guests because that's your captured audience you already have there. How much income are you creating from your non-hotel guests? And I would add a little side note that the lion's share of his hotels were what we call off-airport locations, really ideal to maximize revenue from non-hotel guests that park there. They do the park and fly, park there, fly out, come back and have their vehicle at the hotel. So his quick answer was, well, I don't know. I'm not even sure if we do that. And
you're like, great opportunity.
Well, knowing what I know about parking and what I've learned here in my stint at Ocra is 3 of those markets that he was in, SFO, San Francisco being one of them, are dynamo markets for off-airport guest parking. But I said to him, you're missing a huge opportunity. He goes, well, what do you mean? And I referenced a current client of ours who's also a large REIT owner. And I shared with them the case study of in 2025, this enormous, exceeding $3 million in incremental revenue we created for that group. And his face looked at me and he goes, almost like more than it was the aha plus the aha. And is that real? Like too good to be true almost, Christina? So I said, let me do something for you. We'll run a quick assessment. We do a quick revenue analysis and a pro forma for him. And when I sent that to him, he said, like, my aha moment at that point was like, eyes open, I'm going to be a hero, meaning him. I'm going to be a hero when he goes to report to the committee about this new revenue stream for 6 to 8 hotels, creating hundreds of thousands of dollars of very profitable, right, almost right to the bottom line income stream from a new profit center that we talked about, because they were not capitalizing on selling those spots. And when we got involved and he had his aha moment about this, he's become such an advocate for us that he refers a lot of his colleagues and friends to us and is like, I've got the best solution in the world.
I've had such a great time talking to you today, James. Thank you so much for your time, your insight, and all the information about Ocra.
Thank you, Christina. It's always a pleasure.